Welcome to the Hyper Growth Zone podcast. This is your go-to resource for personal growth, mastering communication, and influencing and persuasion techniques that will help you unleash the full potential of yourself and others. Here is your host, Alex Morgan.
Welcome to another episode of the Hyper Growth Zone podcast. My name is Alex Morgan, and I'm a master trainer of hypnosis and NLP. And I think this is going to be a really interesting episode because I made a hypnosis audio that talks about a lot of these concepts within the audio. So if you're interested in the hypnosis audio, you can just go to my YouTube channel. I'll put it in the show notes. Create Your Ideal Future is the name of the channel where I'm posting videos every day. This episode, though, it is all about changing your negative thinking and clearing out negative thinking. So I'm going to talk about why you kind of have these negative thoughts when really a lot of it is programming. Many people, they have heavy programming from the ages of 0 to 7. And slowly, they just keep running these programs. It's like if you were to open your computer and you click on a certain file and you always go to it. It may not be your favorite thing to click on. However, you click on it anyway just because you're used to it. So maybe you're used to this negative thinking, and that's okay. The idea is now that you are sitting here, walking around, listening, whatever it is that you're doing, however you are listening, now know that you can get rid of this negative thinking because you are listening, and I'm sure because you are listening that you will want to actually implement the things here. Not only do you want to listen, you also want to take action, and in the future you always want to be able to focus on what you want. So all these programs from 0 to 7, we're walking around like a little unconscious mind, like a sponge, we're soaking up everything. Doesn't mean that your negative thinking is your fault. However, since you are listening, why don't you do something about it? Because you can always do something else instead, can't you? I'm sure you don't want to keep having these negative thoughts, do you? So it doesn't make sense because if you think about it, all the logic in the world that we actually think is so logical, chances are we learned it through something else. However, who's to say that that's logical or anything that we think is logical? If you were to take away so many different things, what are you really left with? You're left with yourself and whatever else is there. So why do you need to run all these supposed logical programs in your mind that aren't getting you the results that you want? So that's really something to consider. So if you are frustrated with negative thinking, if people are just irritating you for no reason and you start to think negative, then definitely keep listening. Because throughout this episode, I'm going to give you different strategies so you can actually overcome the negative thinking as you listen. And of course, like I said, you need to also practice afterwards if that is needed, and you need to focus on what you want. So really with negative thinking, it's just the opposite of positive thinking. The problem is 95% of everything we do is unconscious. So what does that include? It includes our thinking. That's right. It includes our thinking. So chances are today you thought a lot of thoughts and they were all unconscious. Tomorrow, what are you going to do? 95% of the thoughts that you thought of today are going to be unconscious, and they're going to be similar or the same. They're going to have that same emotional charge, those same thoughts. You're going to feel as if they're negative, neutral, positive, whatever emotion is attached to them, and they're going to lead to a certain behavior because of the picture that you're creating in your mind, combined with the language that you put to it, is going to lead to behavior. And that's the thing. Any thought, any problem that we have, it's not really a problem until we put language to it, unless you put language around it. So that's why I said logic, all the logic that you know in your mind, it doesn't really matter. What matters is all the language that you put, and you can easily change that language. And you change the language, you can really change your whole future. You can begin to create your ideal future. It becomes that easy and effortless for you. So what do you think? I think it's time to really think and consider what you can do instead. So if you have negative thinking, the idea is to think, what is that thing that's bothering you? What's been really bothering you? What's that negative thought that keeps coming up? Why is this keep coming up? So what is that thing that keeps coming up? What is that thought? So think of that. That's the first thing that you want to do. You want to recognize what's the negative thought, what's the negative thinking. And then you're going to ask yourself a question, because we want to actually get more in depth to the program that's probably running behind that negative thought. This is one way to get rid of negative thinking. There's going to be other ways that I'm going to share. However, once you have that negative thought, let's say whatever it is that you don't like something, or you don't feel good, whatever it is, you don't think you're good enough. You want to know, how is that a problem for you, especially if it's something specific. Because if it's something specific, like, oh, I just don't like how a person does that. Well, how's that a problem? How's that a problem for you? Because a lot of times when you keep asking that question, how is that a problem, you're going to get to a heavier program, something that is actually leading to the negative thinking. And once you recognize the program, one of the things that you can do is you can make a nice little if-then statement, little cause and effect statement, showing that you can install a new program. So let's say that you have a problem that you don't like something that someone does, and you ask yourself, how's that a problem? And you lead to, I'm not good enough. So that's your program that you're running. You have this program that you're not good enough. So there's no reason to really think like that, because really, what does good enough mean? That just means you're doing the action of not being good enough. You can easily be good enough, can't you? So if someone told you how awesome you are, then you will be good enough, or more than good enough. If you wake up every day feeling good, then you will be good, or even more good enough, and you really do deserve it all and more. So you can make little if-then statements like this, and this installs the new program. So find something, though, that really resonates with you. So you can ask yourself, okay, maybe I'm not feeling good enough. If I were to really feel good enough, what's important about that? And then this gives you some keywords, and put those into your if-then statement. It's much different if I'm working with you personally, because then I can kind of discuss the program with you. I would reframe your thinking a bit. I would loosen up your model of the world a bit as well. However, for the purpose of this episode, this is an easy way that you can do it. If you want help creating new programs, definitely reach out. All my information will be in the description of the episode. Now back to some of the other techniques, because I made a hypnosis session, like I said, that goes along with this episode, and I'm going to share some of the techniques now. And if you're interested, you can also go and listen to the hypnosis session, and you can be in a nice resourceful state, a nice altered state, a nice trance, feeling nice and calm and peaceful as you listen to the techniques. However, I'm going to share them right now so you know exactly what you can do to get rid of your negative thinking. So the first technique, what you want to do is you want to think of the negative thought that you have and push that negative thought next to a question mark. So make a question mark in your mind. Have that question mark have a color, a size, a shape, a texture. Notice the intensity of the feeling there. Notice if it has any sounds. And as you think of that with that negative thought, push the negative thought and that question mark way far away on your mental screen, further and further and further away, so it really doesn't have any emotional charge at all. And if you happen to be in the picture, make sure you can see your body in the picture. Make sure you're not looking through your own eyes. Make sure you can see your body in the picture. If you're in the picture with the question mark for whatever reason, however, you should just see a question mark, and that should fade away and fade away and fade away until you can really not even see it anymore. And then what you can do is you can either look to the left or you can look to the right. And what is this? This is some nice, big, open space. And in this open space, there are different choices, new choices that you thought you didn't have before now. And now that this negative thought isn't in your mind, you have new choices, either to the left or to the right, wherever you want to look. And along with these new choices, you also have new opportunities. And also with the new choices and the new opportunities, you have new possibilities. So this is really when you get to focus on what you want to feel instead. What do you want to think instead? What do you want to choose instead? What do you want to do instead? You have so many choices, opportunities, and possibilities that you probably didn't even consider before. And just like I said at the end of the last episode on inner conflicts, I said we're not usually limited by the things that we want to do and cannot do. We're actually limited by the things that we haven't even considered yet. So you probably, because of your negative thinking, haven't even considered all of the things that you can accomplish. You can accomplish so many things if you just made some new choices and you really took advantage of some opportunities and possibilities. Because oftentimes when a person is thinking negatively, instead of clearing their negative thoughts, they're focusing on their negative thoughts. And so they're actually deleting from their conscious awareness, they're actually deleting opportunities that are out there. Because if you're thinking negative, maybe an opportunity walks right by you and you don't even notice it. Or maybe there's a possibility anywhere around you in the room you're in, or if you're outside, wherever it is, and you don't see it because you're thinking negatively. So there's so many things because of the program that you're running with that negative thinking. When you're not clearing out that negative thought, you're not leaving any room for any new choices, possibilities, or opportunities. That's the thing. Negative emotions, sometimes they also have a negative feeling with them. And a lot of the times when people hold on to negative emotions, they're just not seeing that they have other choices. If they simply learn from that emotion, once they get rid of that emotion, they change the meaning. So that means that emotion can go away or can change into something else. And now they see they have new choices, opportunities, and possibilities. So that's the first one with the question mark. So I think that's a really good one. You can do that just in a few minutes. You push that question mark out, you look to the left or to the right into the big open space, and you focus on the new choices, opportunities, and possibilities. And if you do that enough and you practice that enough, you're going to be focusing on what you want quite a bit, aren't you? So the next one, you can imagine yourself in a big open meadow outside. This is more of a visualization. And in this big meadow is a bright blue sky, some big white puffy clouds, and a small, narrow, shallow stream. And you can either imagine your negative thinking, your negative thoughts, whatever those are. You can imagine those going in the stream and drifting and drifting and fading away. Or you can even imagine your negative thoughts going up into the clouds, way off into the clouds. And then you can imagine that cloud going further and further and further away. And maybe you want to empty out some more negative thoughts, and you want to empty out even more. Empty out however many negative thoughts so you can clear all of your negative thinking. However much that is, you can get rid of all of it if that's what you want to do. And I'm sure because you're listening, that is what you want to do, isn't it? Imagine all those negative thoughts are going and going away. So that's the second one. It's a really easy way to just imagine those negative thoughts going away. And any time that you're doing any of these things, you can then, in that big open meadow like you did in the first one, then after the negative thoughts go, you can bring in the feelings and the thoughts that you want instead. Always think, what can you learn from this? What do you want to feel instead? What do you want to do instead? What do you want to say to yourself instead? What do you want to hear and see instead? And that's going to reinforce the learning. And you can even imagine yourself in the future now. What are you going to do in the future if you were in a similar situation where you used to have these old thoughts? You can imagine yourself in the future now, where you can really check and see how well you react to whatever it is going on with your new choices, new opportunities, and possibilities that you have. So you can always imagine yourself in the future dealing with situations that you used to find difficult, and maybe you find them so easy now. And the more you imagine yourself doing this in an easy way, the unconscious mind that you're doing this with, it doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined. So it actually thinks that you're focusing on something that you really, really want. All you have to do is make sure that there's a good feeling there with it. And next thing you know, your future also becomes easy. So when you get rid of negative thinking and you clear out negative thoughts, you can get rid of the past. And you can work on these thoughts in the present. And then you can even begin to focus on how you can get rid of so many things in the future. And instead, in the future, you have new choices, opportunities, and possibilities, don't you? So that's really another easy way to do it, is you can also imagine yourself in the future having success, because there's so many times that we focus on things that we don't want. How many times do you actually sit there and focus on having success in the future? What does success look like, sound like, and feel like to you? How are you going to know you have all that success? What are you going to be thinking? Really focus on that. And the more you focus on that, your unconscious mind just needs a little bit of repetition. All it needs is a little bit of repetition for a habit to be installed. And once that's installed, it becomes automatic and natural for you. And this will last as long as you want. The other thing you can do, the last thing that I'm going to share here, is you can imagine yourself in a place, whatever that place is for you. It can be a place that you've been. It can be a place that you want to go. It can be a place just in your imagination, something like this, whatever place it is for you. However, in this place, this is a place where negative thinking does not exist. So if you were to all of a sudden be in this place where negative thinking does not exist, what choices would you have? What opportunities would you have? What possibilities would you have? What success? How much success could you have? That's right. What would this feel like and sound like and look like to you? And what would you be saying to yourself? So you can even imagine yourself in a place where negative thinking doesn't exist, where success and whatever else you want exists. All the things that you deleted, all the choices, opportunities, and possibilities, you can bring those in here now. Because remember, negative thinking, it's just an old program that's running in your mind. It's not something that's actually real. And because you keep using this negative thinking, your unconscious mind actually thinks it's real. So if you can just keep imagining different choices, opportunities, and possibilities, your unconscious mind is then going to think those are real. And people around you are going to start asking you, what did you do? How did you change your thinking? What happened? How is this so easy for you? You used to always say these things. Now you say something completely different. You seem like a whole new person. What did you do? This is really common. This is what happens. And oftentimes when I'm working with people, they'll have one way of thinking when they first come see me. And they'll tell me all these things that they're doing. And all of a sudden we work on it during a session. And they come back a week or two later and I ask them, well, how was it? What did you do? And they start telling me all these things that they did. Or sometimes they just say, oh, it was okay. Nothing really big happened, nothing. And I'm like, interesting. So you just talked for about 5-10 minutes. And you didn't mention any of the things that you mentioned before that were a problem for you. Did you notice that? And they're like, wow, I didn't. I said, yeah, you mentioned all the things that you said that you wanted to do during the last session, how you're thinking about those instead. So this is something to focus on, because this is something that can easily happen to anyone, any person, everyone who focuses on what they want. One day you're thinking about something, the next day you've imagined something so many times, and you have a new program in your mind, and it doesn't even seem like that logic you had before was never logical to begin with. It didn't really make sense to begin with now, did it? No, it didn't. So now you have this new imagined or real logic, or whatever your unconscious mind thinks it is, because it doesn't know the difference between what's real and imagined. So that's for you to decide. From now on, with your new thinking that you got just from listening to this episode within about 20 minutes, how easy was that? You can now create your ideal future with the thinking, the programs, with everything that you want. So thanks so much for listening to the episode. Go ahead and rate the podcast wherever you are listening. I do really appreciate everyone who's been tuning in. It makes it really easy for me to continue to talk about these things. If you have a suggestion or recommendation, something that you want to hear, definitely reach out to me. All my information will be in the description of the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to see you on the next episode.